In the absence of what you want, create it.
Everybody, it didn't matter if I was working in Argentina or India or US or Japan or wherever, people want to win.
I'm here to learn. I'm not an imposter. I'm here to learn something new, and that's okay.
When somebody tells me I can't do something, my 2 words are watch me.
You have to first know yourself. Then you have to continually, relentlessly grow yourself, and then be willing to boldly show yourself.
The only real free person is the person who is disciplined and structured.
You have to focus on what you must do. And so often we allow what we can do crowd out what we must do. And what we must do is the strategic choices.
You can't conquer what we're not willing to confront.
No one cares about you until you show a little care for them.
When individuals win, companies win, because companies are made of individuals.
Bitcoin or BTC, $1 trillion CAP, don't sleep on cryptocurrency, just make some money while you sleep.
Reimagine who you are, who you want to be, and get through it. You got to get through it. At the end of the day, you always got to find a way to win. Well, hello, family, friends, and colleagues. Hello to everybody. Welcome once again to the Winner's Circle. And you got a chance to see some of the people who I've had the privilege to interview and connect with as we get their life-changing insights. I call all of those winners. You all are winners. They're influencers. They were industry leaders, ordinary humans doing extraordinary things. My name is Daphne Jones, and I serve as the host of the Winner's Circle, which is the monthly podcast. We are not just going to talk about success. We study winning. So all the words that you hear about how do people successfully win, that is what you have heard, and that's what you're going to continue to hear as we talk. Today's guest is another trailblazer. She's somebody who isn't just winning in her field. She has redefined it, and wait till you meet her. Joining us today is Dr. Carika Weldon. She's a Bermudian biochemist. She's a geneticist. She's a pioneer and a groundbreaking entrepreneur who made history as the first Black woman in the world to solely found a genomics company. I mean, she's the founder and the CEO of Carika Genetics. She's leading cutting edge research focused on the unique genetic makeup of Caribbean people. Y'all know that I'm from Jamaica. My husband's from Jamaica. That when you look at the Caribbean diaspora, we can help close the global healthcare gap and push forward the future of medicine that is precise and not just a wish list. From working in London at the Oxford Genomics Center to becoming Bermuda's science advisor during COVID-19, she helped launch the island's molecular diagnostic lab. Her impact is both global, deeply personal as well. She's been recognized with honors like Bermudian of the Year, Entrepreneur of the Year, and the Queen's Certificate and Badge of Honor. But beyond the accolades, she's a visionary on a mission. And she's going to talk about why she's on this mission. And it's about equity. It's about access and representation. So today, I want you guys to listen to, number one, how does she win? How did she win? Number two, what is the mindset that was behind her success? And number three, how was she changing the game in genetics? And what does that mean for us and our families? Last time we tried to have her on, something happened with the technology and the internet. But you know what? This is an example of when things fall in out of place and don't work for you. That's okay. You don't cry. You don't quit. You find a way to win. You find a way to pivot or persevere and know that whatever is worth planning, it must be worth doing, and always find a way to win. So I welcome Dr. Weldon to the Winner's Circle. Applause, 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 applause.
Thank you so much. Excited to be here.
There we go. There's the applause.
I'm really excited to be here.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing a lot better than last time, but I'm a firm believer that, like you said, like things happen for a reason and you got to push through it. And we are here, right? When it's important, you got to make it happen, and we're here today.
That's right. And guys, I didn't tell you how I met Dr. Weldon. I mean, I just met her out in the fields of South Africa in Cape Town. We were at a women's conference, and she had the room of, I don't know, 1,000 women, 800 women,
Yeah.
mesmerized. We were shook when we first of all saw her presence on the stage. Hadn't seen it. I'd never met a geneticist before. Never met anybody who was into genomics before. I'm like, what do they look like? Oh, they look like her. Okay. And so what happened though was she had this genetic test, and it's a what do you call it? A biological age test. And she said, how many of y'all want to know how old you really are? Right? You know, we all think we know based on our birth certificate how old we are, but how old do you really think you are? So all of us, she could only hold like a couple hundred in that room. That after the event was over, and the 200 of us that went in there got a chance to give her our, saliva, and then we got the test back, and I still have it on my phone where it's telling me all kinds of things, not just how old I am, but the quality of my life and what I need to be doing in order to do better in life. So I just thank God that you're here. So, let's jump into it. Carrie, can I call you Carrie, or do I have to call you Dr. Weldon?
Yeah, that's my mom's name. So yeah, that works. I'm named after my mother. So that's totally fine.
Okay, great. And what does winning mean to you? And do you believe that you're winning?
Yes. So to answer your second question, I think for me, I'm very goal oriented. So I like to give myself a goal. And for me, winning is achieving that goal. It could be something quite simple, but for me, I like to see results. I'm a results person, right? And so it's, if I set my mind to something, that I achieve it. And for me, that's winning. I think the other thing I want to say is I'm a firm believer that we are here on this earth for a purpose, and that purpose is to leave this world better than we found it.
Yeah.
And so for me, winning is doing that, just that in my lane, using my skills. How can I make this world a bit better for people around me before I came, compared to before I came? So I think those two things are what really is what winning means to me.
I love it. Thank you for that. So you grew up in Bermuda, right?
Yes, I did. Born and raised.
So what first sparked your interest in science and genetics? I just don't know if you were around a bunch of scientists when you were growing up, or what.
No.
On that.
I mean, so Bermuda is not a triangle. So I'll say that first of all. We exist. That's a question that we get all the time. So we're a little small dot, just like 400 miles east of, I think, North Carolina in the Atlantic. 21 square miles, 65,000 people that we live here. So we don't have a university. Like we don't have professors, here that I would have seen. I just had a curiosity of like, well, how does that work? Like just understanding the mechanisms behind how things operate. And I mean, for me, like even if you think about it, when you walk, you have this arm moving and this leg moving, and then this one. It's like, how does my body know to do that? I don't know. It just fascinated me. And when I went to school, I was always asking the science teacher questions that they had never thought of. So, I just really gravitated to science and math. That was just my passion. I didn't know I was going to be a geneticist when I was younger. I initially had seen the movie of Dr. Ben Carson, actually, when I was in Sunday school. That's how this all kind of started. And I just remember being inspired by the greatness that he, accomplished, as well as the first neurosurgeon to separate Siamese twins, right? Let alone being, Black and, male, but, he just achieved so much. And I just thought I want to be able to do that. And I didn't realize at the time, but what I really wanted to do was the impact he had. But I thought I could actually be a neuroscientist too, and a neurosurgeon. I got to about 16 and decided to change my mind. I thought, brains seems a bit too serious for me. It seems too high risk. So I changed and I said, okay, I'm going to be a pediatrician. But I always wanted to be in the medical field and helping people. That was always my passion. It was only until I went away to university that I realized that actually I think genetics might be my jam. I think this might be my thing. So it took a while. But I always knew that I love science, to know why does the body and why does the world work the way it does.
So there's an intellectual curiosity that you just had.
Yes.
You always look for why. We tell our kids that when they're 2 years old and they say why, then you answer, then they ask you why again. And we've learned about the 5 whys in corporate and all that. And so there is something about being curious and asking why. So what problem did you see that led you to start Carry Genetics? Was there a particular issue that came up that said, I have to make a play at this?
Yeah, I mean, I would say there's 2 different incidences that led me to starting Carry Genetics. So the first event happened in 2017. I actually started a science charity called the Bermuda Principles Foundation and was holding a science conference in Bermuda. And I came back home to do that because I was living in England at the time. And unfortunately, my grandmother fell sick. She had cancer. And I remember standing in the hospital room with my family, and my cousin looked at me and she said, "You're a cancer researcher. Why don't you know what to do?" And I didn't even remember what my reply was, but that hit me like a ton of bricks right here. Cause I'm like, yeah, I'm Dr. Weldon, I'm the first doctor in my family and, all these accolades, and everyone knows I did cancer research. But in this moment, when my best friend, my grandma was my best friend, someone I love so much, I cannot do anything to help her. That really made me think, I want to actually be having an impact on other people's lives and not just, publishing really nice papers. The second thing that led to that was actually when I was in charge of COVID for Bermuda. So I was now a young woman. I think I was like 29, right? So I hadn't even hit 30 yet. I'm leading the country through testing for COVID and the science strategy. And, we had the vaccine that came out, right, in early 2021. Yep. I had to be in the campaign. I had to be on national TV and get the vaccine the first day for everyone to see. It was all these things. And we saw who signed up, and it was a very clear difference between the different demographics in Bermuda. So Bermuda is about 55% Black and about 30% white, and 90% of the white Bermudians signed up for the vaccine week 1. They were good. It was about 50-50 for Black Bermudians. And when I would speak to them, and because my job was also to educate and to have these conversations and explain what the vaccine was about, I would ask them, and they would say, well, this hasn't been tested on people like me. How do I know it's safe?
Yes.
That also hit me. I'm like, that's a really good question. Now, I then in that moment did remember my response, and I said, well, unfortunately, this isn't just about the vaccine. This is medicine in general. None of the medication you're taking has really been tested to make sure it's safe for people like you. In some of the hypertension medications, we actually found an example where in the package insert, it says, this may not work for Black patients in black and white ink. And so they were like, right, as you would imagine. And that's when I realized I had to do something about it. COVID had brought together the Caribbean region quite closely from a health perspective. And I knew that the way to tackle this was for the entire Caribbean region. And that's where Carry Genetics was birthed. So it's those 2 problems that really drove me to where I am today.
That's great. Deeply personal on the one hand, and also you have a care for human life, and that's great. By the way, if those that have questions for Dr. Carey, you can do #AskCarey to ask Dr. Weldon to submit your questions. #Ask Dr. Weldon. So can you explain the genome program, what it is? We're talking about, biological age and cancer and stuff that wasn't tested for people. What does that mean? What is the genome program, and what makes the Caribbean Genome Program that you run and own so important on a global basis?
Yeah.
That's not just a Bermuda thing.
No. So yeah, thanks for teeing that up, because one of the things that really hit me was we can do these small projects, which has been done, right? We do a small project on, say, breast cancer here and prostate cancer there. And, we've done some things in the Caribbean. So we're not, completely starting from scratch. But in the rest of the world, you have Genomics England. They did 100,000 people. They also have a follow-on project, which is called All of Us. That's 5 million people that they're doing in the UK, right? You also have the UK Biobank. That's 500,000 people. In the US, you have All of Us, which is 1 million people. You have the Emirati Genome Program. That was thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people. There's been so many national genome programs. And that's really where you get the data to then know what should we care about, what should we not care about, how do we make sure we design our diagnostic test so that it's better for the population. And so it just really was clear that we don't have a Caribbean genome program, and we need to have enough data that would allow us to make these statistically significant analysis so that we can impact change. Right. So at Carry Genetics, we are leading the Caribbean Genome Program, and it is our goal to hit 250,000 Caribbean people by 2030. So we are on the clock. So by the end of 2030, we want to have 250,000 Caribbean people. We want to have, that's kind of like a stake in the ground that Caribbean data is here. We understand what we need, and we want to be included when drugs are, designed and determined to be safe. And under that program, we have a number of, little projects that contribute towards it that, again, we're looking to do throughout the entire Caribbean. And the value of that beyond the region, because the region, we're not that big, compared to the rest of the world, is number one, there are the Caribbean diaspora throughout the world, right? That are in the US, of course, and also in the UK, in Canada, in Europe, that are actually not getting the right treatment that they actually deserve, right? I mean, we had a conversation with the Netherlands, and they said to us, we'd really love to work with you because our Surinamese population in our country is completely different genetically to the rest of us, and we don't know what that looks like. So there is definitely that collaboration in other countries where the diaspora is. But even beyond that, the Caribbean is like the genetic melting pot of the world. Right? So you have in one small region, 10 plus different ethnic groups. And from our data, we have at least 90% of us are admixed, or what that means is like you're mixed with more than one ethnicity. So the diversity that we have in the Caribbean genetically is exactly what will help fill this diverse data gap in pharma, right? They're looking for those who are non-European because that's where like 95% of the data comes from. Yeah. And they're really struggling to find, people that are wanting and willing to join these studies. And so the Caribbean is actually a really good potential solution for that. And so that's really our premise why Carry Genetics exists.
So you really don't have to be from Jamaica or from the Caribbean to be able to be impacted favorably or unfavorably with drug discovery. So what you're doing is going to help the world, whether they're white or black, or yellow or beige or whatever color, because we are the melting pot within there. So all of the DNA and genetic stuff is there. Whereas so on the European front, there's limited DNA.
Exactly. And the way I like to think about it is, if you were to draw have the Caribbean in the center, you could almost draw a line to every region in the world where we have people that, are in the region, right? And so what makes it also special is we are a bunch of small islands that are geographically isolated for hundreds of years. And from a genetics perspective, that's interesting because our gene pool is not being diluted. So what you have is almost like a enrichment, like you're like almost enhancing any genes that came on the island. If you keep having children with people on the island, you keep building and building, amplifying it in a way, and so it becomes easier to find the needle in the haystack. That's really also the big key to this, is we don't have to test as many people to find these rare new genetic traits in genes that cause disease or cause how we respond to medication. And when we do find them, that is what is going to help those globally, is understanding these new genetic markers.
All right, so let's keep that in mind. I want to show a video to you guys. It's about, I don't know, 45 seconds or a minute. Let's cue that video now.
What if the age that really matters isn't the one on your ID? You probably know your chronological age, the number of candles on your last birthday cake. But there's another kind of age that may be even more important, your biological age. This reflects how old your body truly is at the cellular level. It is influenced by your genes, your environment, and the choices you make every day. Two people can both be 40 years old on paper, but one may have the body of a healthy 30-year-old, while the other is biologically closer to 50. The difference? Lifestyle choices on nutrition, sleep, stress, exercise, and exposure to toxins. That means you have some control over your biological clock, and that's exactly what makes it so powerful. Because when it comes to aging, it's not just about living longer, it's about living better. Want to know your predicted biological age today? Download the free Carry Genetics app and fill in the lifestyle questionnaire.
That's great. So we have on the screen now the QR code that for anyone that is interested and you want to learn more and actually know what your biological age is, take a look at this, take a picture, and you'll be glad you did. You'll learn a lot more than just your biological age, but you will learn that for sure. So Dr. Carey, we have a question. It says here, from Rashawn Harris, you mentioned biological age versus chronological age. What are some signs that someone's body may be actually be aging faster than they think? So if they don't get the biological test, is there some way that they will know, you know what, I'm only 50, but I feel like I'm 90? Like, or what are the signs that somebody might want to look at to know that they're not aging well?
So the interesting thing is there aren't any signs, right? I mean, you might feel a certain way, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're aging faster. A lot of the women, when we did the testing in Cape Town, they were like, oh, it's going to say them like 10 years older. Like they were so pessimistic about what they thought, but we've been conditioned in this day and age of marketing that we have to be perfect and we have to have, this certain type of body shape and you have to look this certain way at your age. And, and this is what makes it interesting is really the only way to really tell what's going on is to do the test. We're looking at what's called methylation or epigenetics. It's essentially chemical reactions that happen on the DNA from your environment over a period of time. So your lifestyle, again, how you eat, how you sleep. I always stress that because a lot of people don't always put sleep into the conversation when we're talking about wellness. You have to rest. How you handle stress, right? All of these different things have chemical reactions that go on in your body. And that is what we're actually looking at. And so sometimes it is a shocker because I think we're conditioned to say, what's my number on the scale? Right? What's my BMI? Which don't even get me started on BMI because that's biased to certain ethnicities. Yeah. We've been kind of ingrained with these metrics that if I have this in line, I'm healthy. And that's not always the case. We've seen some people that are, if you look at them, you think, oh my God, yeah, they're going to be super good with their biological age, and they're not. Because they may not be, and when you speak to them, they're like, yeah, I'm not sleeping enough. I'm not getting the proper nutrition and I'm super stressed. Stress is another one that we need to focus on because that triggers a lot of biochemical reactions in the body. And I think that's, something that is not always talked about. We're always looking on the outward, but what is happening inside? Those chemical reactions, they take a toll. So there isn't, really any signs and, or things you can look out for. Is really do the test because it's having an internal impact on your body and you can actually see what it's looking like with the test.
Right. And I think the notion of self-care is really important. And a lot of women just take care of everybody else first and we're last.
Yes, exactly.
So talk about stress and anxiety, sleepless nights. I think we get heart attacks faster than men or something. Because we're always we're anxious.
Yeah.
Taking this test is just one step towards self-care.
Yes.
Oh no.
Yeah.
do anything about it. But if you know, then you could say, aha, I now know that I can do some things to sleep better or drink more water or whatever needs to happen in order for me to be better. Because when I'm not any good, I'm no good for anybody.
This is it. You only have one body, right?
That's right.
Like they got to take care of it. One of the other things that came out of this, which I didn't anticipate, is we also sometimes too hard on ourselves. Because we have this kind of like grocery list of things we think we should be doing to be healthy, and if we don't do that, we feel like, oh, we failed. Like, oh my God, I'm the worst ever. And actually, on the flip side, we had a lot of women who felt that way, and when they got their result, it was like, oh, I'm actually not doing a bad job. Like, I'm actually taking a decent care of my body. And when they look into it, it's like, well, yeah, I do sleep, a certain amount of hours, and I do drink water, and you start to think about the positives, and that mentality sometimes gets us down, and we start to again, just be too hard on our own selves, that we try to be perfect. Yeah. So we see in both sides of the coin that it kind of wakes up those who thought they were fine, and then actually you're doing okay to those who were a bit too harsh on themselves.
That's right. I get it. Okay. We're kind of going to shift a little bit, but we're not going to leave genomics and all that, but just about mindset or challenges. What were one or two or three challenges that you encountered in building a genomics company in Bermuda? There are people who are entrepreneurs in their own rights. They've started up their company. You're a founder. There are other founders out there. There are people who want to be a founder. What are some of the things that you had to encounter that you were able to overcome?
The first thing is money, I would say, because you can't have a company without any money, because you got to pay people. And this is the first time, not just in Bermuda, but in the entire Caribbean, that there's a company doing this type of research. And that concept, some people were like, oh, they hadn't heard of that before. And so being able to raise enough money, because this is also not a cheap business, right? Genetic testing is not cheap. You have to buy machines, and you have to have highly trained people to run the test. And so, that was really the first big hurdle that I had. And I'm just grateful that timing was everything for me. And I think that's also a key piece of winning, is being able to highlight the opportunity and the timing and taking advantage of it, because some things you have to strike at a certain time. Otherwise, it may not go in your favor. Right. So for me, when I was in charge of COVID, and everyone knows who I am now in Bermuda. I can't walk down the street, unfortunately, without people knowing who I am. It gave me that kind of national profile, and not just people knowing who I am, but seeing what I can do. Right. So I remember I had a first press conference when I landed, maybe within a month for that. And the news said, well, some people don't think you can do this. What do you say? And I said, well, let's see. Watch my results. And so being able to execute and doing that on a national level, allow people to see I can get stuff done in the right way. And that I was able to capitalize on to raise, I think, $2 million US in 5 months in Bermuda, which is something that I would not recommend to the average person. But I think it was the timing of it all, and being able to move right after coming off of that national platform and wanting to do this. The second thing is finding the right team members. I can't do everything. I am one person, right? And it's making sure that as you build your team, you find like-minded people who see the vision and have, I think for me, the biggest thing, a good heart. We're in a business that impacts people's lives. This isn't about making, loads of money right away. And, it's life and death in some instances. And finding the right people has been a challenge, and I was just talking about this last week to another colleague. It's once you find the right people, make sure you value them and make sure they know their value to stay on your team, because that's a huge, bigger loss than you can think of if you do lose them. And then the last thing I would say in terms of a challenge in building this out has been just getting the word out there. It's so much. It's almost you feel like sometimes I'm in a desert, and it's just you look in every direction, and it's where do you start? Because there's so much work to do, but it's just, managing my time, prioritizing. You can't tackle everything in one day. Rome was not built in one day. I actually said that earlier today to one of the team members. You got to take it slow. If you're doing something innovative, most times the path in front of you hasn't been created, right? You're laying the bricks down as you walk on the path.
Right.
So it's like, well, where do we go now? And sometimes it's very overwhelming, especially when you're doing things that just don't even have regulation, right? Like don't even have, there's no precedence to look at, like, well, how do we do this? And so just take it step by step. That's one thing I do. And just say, okay, we're going to focus on this for now. Let's get this done. And then we'll move to the next thing. But I actually think that's an unspoken challenge that I hadn't heard anyone say before. It's just how overwhelming it is to try to do something new. And sometimes it can be a bit like daunting, like, well, did I actually want to do this? So, why did I do this again?
Can I sign up for this? Well,
I
so
going back to your job, you know what I mean? I could just be like, but letting someone else stress about where the money's coming from.
Right.
It's it's just taking it bit by bit, because in the end, it's those moments when you see the impact up front and personal in your face that it's like, that's why I'm doing it.
Yeah. Well, so you mentioned team, and you didn't use the word love, but let them know that they're appreciated. But my question is, how did you get the teams? I mean, many of us have teams that work for us, and we say we're going there and we're going to conquer that mountain, and the team is like, we are. Oh, come, let's go. How did you get your team to believe in your vision that they hadn't seen accomplished before?
Yeah.
That.
I mean, it's a good question. I'd say the first thing is those at the top with me that are like on the executive team, they are also as crazy as I am. So, we've done, like, one of our COOs, she's also done pioneering work in this field and has also trotted new paths. And I think that's important to have someone that's able to have done that before. And, when something doesn't exist, doesn't run away, but okay, let's create it. Let's build it. And then similarly for, our new CEO of Carrier Genetics St. Lucia, he started his own startup. He was looking to do the same thing in a smaller way, but, also was like, I don't know how I'm going to build it, but this has to be done. And having just like really visionary, I think that's a word that comes to mind, team members at the top with me.
Okay.
The imagery that comes to mind is when Moses was getting the commandments and he had them, but he had to like hold them up, and he had Aaron, and I can't remember who else was on the other side, but he had two people holding him up. Like, you can't do it by yourself, right? Like, I'm a firm believer that we all have a purpose, and some of us are meant to be the one, out in front leading others, but you can't do it by yourself. You have to have strong people that are right there with you. So I think that's probably the first thing. And then when it comes to the rest of the team, because it can be overwhelming, all the stuff we're doing is, we try to share the wins that we have at the top, we find out these things, share them with the team, right? Because it's not just to share the bad news and like all the struggles, but let's share the good news and the impact, so that, again, they see like, this is why we're doing this, right? Like, we just saved this person in St. Lucia because we diagnosed them with prostate cancer. Like, let's all win together and feel that, win together. But again, I'll just say this. Some people don't fit. Yeah. And that's okay. Yeah. Right. And it's just, once you realize that, is to, say we appreciate your contribution, but this may not be the
select out. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's being okay with that, because that was what I struggled with a lot as well, because I just take it personal. But you can't, it's just some people are built for startups and, innovative projects, and some aren't, and that's okay.
Some people are hunters. Others are gatherers. You will go out there and you find the bear, you shoot the bear, you skin the bear. Then
right.
Sitting back saying, okay, now that we have a bear, but before there was a bear, you probably drove people crazy.
I don't think there was a bear coming. Yeah, exactly. So it's just knowing, and I think a big part of being a leader in general is understanding your team. What motivates them? What drives them? What's their ultimate goal, right? And then being able to tap into that and align what you give them that makes them shine.
Yep.
Yeah.
Understand your people. Okay, great. So let's talk about the mindset a little bit. You went from being a doer, and I'm not saying, or a scientist, which you still are, but you went from scientist to CEO slash scientist. Did you have to think differently as you moved from being a person who's concerned about an experiment or a concept to now driving this whole organization and the global impact and the global communications and all that? Did your mindset have to change? Or you just
I don't think so. Because when looking back, there were some instances where I always, looking back, you're like, that actually like prepared me for this moment. I think I would say being a young Black female in England in this field, like there's not a lot of us, right? So that's the first thing. I came from Bermuda, where Bermuda I'm the majority, and went into a place where I'm the minority, right? So that was already a transition I already had to make, and that was a mind shift. But I already had made that shift. When I would say my first real test of this was when I became a lecturer. So I was a PhD student, got my PhD, and I went straight into being a full-time lecturer. So I had skipped a postdoc, which is normally what PhD students or people that get the PhD do. Normally you work for someone else for like 5 to 10 years, and you kind of build up your own reputation, and then you go on your own. I just went on my own.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was like skipped all that. But I went straight into being a lecturer, and again, it was only out of a team of 40 lecturers in our department, it was only 2 of us that were Black. And I was the youngest one, so I was 25, right?
Wow.
I used to get mistaken for being a student. And so I had in that period, I did that for 3 years. I used to get people like in the team not taking me seriously, trying to like blame stuff on me that happened at one point because they thought I was a scapegoat. And I used to get mentored by, some of the team who cared about me and saw the potential that, you got 3 things against you. You're young, you're Black, and you're female. Right. So that can kind of rattle some cages, but this is how you go about it. And I just felt like from that point, it was thinking, okay, I have these things that may not work in my favor, but how do I navigate that? That helped me. Then I got to this point of like having to leave my country. And then, now being the person that's leading this for the region. So I think I had made the shifts, but I think what has changed is realizing my decision I make right now, how far that ripple goes.
Right.
That has been a big shift for me in this journey, and understanding sometimes, I remember I could hear now one of my mentors saying, pick your battles. You don't have to fight every battle, right? You might win this battle, but have you won the war? And throughout this journey, it's realizing, okay, I might have an issue with this person in front of me, but in the long term,
take the long view.
Take the long view. And I think that's been a big shift for me. Even with being in the startup, this is what, year 4. At the beginning, I was a bit raw. You had to learn a few things, but it's, the bigger picture is what matters, and the people that we're impacting is what matters, and making decisions with that in mind.
That's great. I mean, there's such wisdom. And are you 30 yet?
I am. My birthday was last week, Tuesday. I'm 36.
Oh, okay. At least, you're getting up there then. So I remember I was walking into a room. I didn't have my paper that my admin had printed for me with my schedule. And so I didn't know what room I was going to go into. And so I opened this door and I said, excuse me, what meeting is this? And they say, I'm sorry, we're waiting for Senior Vice President Daphne Jones. And they didn't think that was me. That couldn't have been me.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, that's me. So I went in and I sat down. But so you've been mistaken for anything but a geneticist, I would imagine.
Oh my God. Yes. I mean, I got mistaken for the student, right? By the students when I was a lecturer. They were like, where's the lecturer? I'm like, me. So that used to happen all the time. But even when I lived in England, because Weldon is actually a British name, right? So, I'm Dr. Weldon. You don't know my gender, you don't know my race.
Right.
So I was making calls back to Bermuda, like when I was setting up that conference I mentioned earlier for my charity, as Dr. Dr. Weldon from Oxford, da, 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 da. And then when they show up on the Zoom call and it's, me at the time, little, dilly bop in her 20s from Bermuda, Bermuda accent, they're like, oh, happens all the time. But it's something that I think it's quite empowering that, you don't know anything about me from my name until I show up. Yeah, because it's, why should you be able to define how you respond to me because you think you know me, That's a whole, we could talk about that for a couple of hours, actually. Yeah.
Well, so you're part of the drug discovery process.
Yeah.
You have several products. One product is biological age.
Mm-hmm.
It's really great for people to kind of get used to the fact that there's a way to look at genetics in a very useful, personal way. But you're also part of the big pharma. I would say the top 5 pharmaceutical companies in the world are working with you, right?
Yes. Yeah. So they've now heard and listened to, actually, yeah, Caribbean data is a really great solution for the problem we have. And so we're working with, some of these top 5 pharma companies so that we can actually work together to include us for the first time. And one of the crazy things that happens is when you speak to them in the industry and you say Caribbean, and I ask them, I said, how big do you think the Caribbean is? 100,000 people. 50,000 people, maybe you might get 150. They don't think there's much people there. And so it's also like kind of flying the flag for the Caribbean to say, no, we are 46 million people. We're the same size as Canada, double the size of Australia, right? And it's like making sure that we're no longer like left off of the list of countries or regions that should be cared about, right? And so we're very excited for this new phase that we're in the company.
Yeah. Is there a DEI? We've been beat up by DEI here in the United States. Does DEI play a role in whether a large pharma company, name one, whoever it is, says we're going to work with you? Or is it because the data is what the data is? You can't argue with the genetic data of Caribbeans. Or do they say, oh, no, you're Caribbean, it means you're Black, we don't do DEI? How does that work together?
Yeah, it's been interesting. Like the geopolitical landscape plays a big role in that industry because a lot of them are regulated in the US or they're from the US. So under Biden, it became mandatory that the FDA had to include, so you have the whole DEI movement at that point. And so they had a lot of clinical trials, so they had to, include certain levels of different diverse people. And now that's obviously, been chucked out the window and gotten rid of. But when it comes down to it, and this is known for years in the industry, everyone knows that the most rich genetic data is of those of African descent.
Right.
So if you take someone from Nigeria and someone from Ghana, they're right next door to each other, right? Their genetic profile is going to be more different from each other than if you take someone from Germany and someone from China. Why is that? Because the seat of humanity is on the continent. That's where we all started, right? That's the source of where we all came from. And everyone that is anywhere else in the world is almost like a bottleneck, like a little sliver that kind of came out of Africa and then, populated and, became a new population. But the core, right? And the seat of where we all come from is Africa, is the continent. And it hasn't been studied much either. I mean, only 2% of the global data of genetics is from the African continent where we all originate from. I mean, again, I had this conversation recently as well. It's almost like instead of starting at the source and at where, we all come from, we've started at the photocopy of the photocopy of the photocopy of the photocopy, photocopied 100 times and saying, oh, let's look at this and see what it looks like. And no, we got to start at the top.
These pharmaceutical companies, they are not disavowing the data.
No, everyone knows this. Everyone
knows the level playing field in a way.
Everyone knows. Yeah, everyone knows African data, and that includes us in the diaspora, is the most rich genetic data. No, why would they care? Now, it's not for them to say, oh, we have a drug that helps everyone. No. That's not why they're doing it. The next Ozempic,
yeah,
is in that data. Like when they're about targets, they need to find new targets between a drug and something that's interacting in the body, right? And with more diverse genetic data, it means that you have more diversity amongst how your body works, right? And so it's, for example, another one is sickle cell. So sickle cell started in one person in Africa tens of thousands of years ago. It was just that, in that one person, they had that one genetic change that meant they didn't die from malaria.
Oh my.
And so that now became something that became, more popular, not even popular, more prevalent, because it meant you didn't die from malaria. So if you survived, you were going to live. And if you died from malaria, you wasn't going to pass on your genetics, right? And so it's finding those differences that can be exploited for commercial, gain, or for fixing this disease or treating this. That's what pharma is about. And if you've already read the book of, the European genome 100 million times, and you found all the different targets, you're gonna want to go to the bigger book that's got more pages, right? And so that is why, you have different projects. There's one called Together for Change. That's 500,000 African genomes that 4 pharma companies are funding together because they know it's gonna yield so much.
Yes.
Yeah.
How can the average person, anybody, take control of their health using genetic insight?
Right now, there are many options, but I would say for us at Carrier Genetics, we have many of them. And so one of the key tests that we offer, apart from biological age, is called a pharmacogenetics test. This will impact you today. This is going to tell you what medications are safe for you and which ones are not. Not every drug works for everybody. And that's just not because you're allergic to it. It's because our body has to metabolize or convert some of these drugs into the active form before they are useful. So codeine, for example, pain relief, when you ingest that, it's not active. It has to hit your liver and then be converted by an enzyme, which is encoded in your DNA, into morphine. And then you get pain relief. And not everyone has the same version of that enzyme. So we have some people, I think it's about 13% of people implemented from our data, that they have the version that will send them straight to emergency because it'll be fatal toxicity.
Wow. And so we have to look below the surface.
Below the surface. So you can get that test today, right? Yeah. And some people don't even know that's a thing, right? That your genetics can impact the medications, but you can go on our website. It's called Meds for You. You can order it today. You have your results in 3 weeks after you send the test back, and you can use that for the rest of your life.
So that barcode, that QR code that we sent, somebody clicks on that, they'll be able to find this pharmacogenetics test?
That's just for the wellness. So that would be your biological age and all the wellness things you can get that test. But pharmacogenetics is a little different. I can also let me just put up on
when we do the summary, we'll put the summary and include that.
Okay, yeah, perfect. And again, it's a very simple cheek swab. It's something that we're even engaging with governments, because we've got data that for certain countries, certain medication is not working, like tamoxifen, right? Breast cancer medication. In one of the Caribbean islands, 65% of the people we tested should not be given tamoxifen. Why? Because it's only being converted halfway into the active form. You can't kill cancer halfway. So the risk is, you give someone who has that issue tamoxifen, you're only killing the cancer halfway, they're going to recur with cancer again. And we're seeing that with clinicians are saying, I am seeing that with my patients. So it's mind-boggling. There's so much to do, but we're having these conversations because for governments, you probably shouldn't be procuring just tamoxifen. Maybe you should have other options, right, for the alternatives. And it's evidence-based policy that we're helping to inform. And this is what, to your first question, this for me is winning, right? Like having this impact. I never imagined when I decided to start Carrier Genetics that we'll be having this conversation about tamoxifen. but this is what the data has shown, and this is where we are making changes.
That's interesting because I'm a tamoxifen user. But I had a different, I had a stage 0 situation. So it wasn't quite as dire, I hope, as others might have been that might have had stage 3 or stage 4 and dealing with that. So, but yeah, so what you're talking about hits home personally, not just to me, but to everybody who is going to be watching that. When you think about your legacy, what is it? What are you going to leave? I know you wanted to make the world better than when you found it. Is that your legacy, or when you first joined?
Yes, I mean, yes, that's a bigger picture, but I have thought about this. I want to be, sitting on my veranda, rocking in my chair. And at that point, I would love that this conversation of precision medicine. So, you getting treated based on what your body needs.
Right.
Commonplace for the Caribbean. This is not a, who's who of, if you have money, you can get it, or you have to have special access. It's integrated into our healthcare system, and we're living longer. That is what I want to leave, that the Caribbean is healthier, living longer, because we are in charge and we have our wellness and our health in our hands and our data, so that we're doing this the right way.
So an informed patient is probably a healthier patient.
I'm going to have to use that. If you
I'm only going to charge you a little bit for it.
Oh my God. Because I have a similar saying for the wellness is, from COVID, we saw that a healthy employee is a productive employee.
That's right.
So I think I'm gonna have to use that. An informed patient is a healthier patient. Oh my, it's the same. This is love it.
Are you looking for investors at all?
We are actively doing our seed rounds. Yeah, we're actively doing our seed round. So we have, investors so far in our pre-seed round, and we're now looking to do our first price round. So this is a new phase that I'm also learning as an entrepreneur, so that we can expand, because we've done testing. We've made genetic testing available to about 1,500 people in the Caribbean that didn't have access before. And now we're getting calls from all sorts of angles say, hey, what about us? Jamaica actually was like, why are we not on the list of countries you tested? And we're like,
yeah. And you had told me earlier that, you're in Bermuda and you just announced St. Lucia now.
Yes. So we have Carry Genetics, which is headquartered in Bermuda. And just 2-3 weeks ago, we have officially announced Carry Genetics St. Lucia. So we are multi-country, we have branches now. We have, subsidiaries.
All right. All she does is win, 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 win. Okay. So let me ask, I have a lightning round. What is the biggest, I think we have like 5 minutes or so. What is the biggest lesson that failure has taught you? Have you ever
find another way? Oh yeah. I didn't even get to medical schools. We didn't even get to that. So I was trying to get to Oxford for medicine. I didn't even get an interview. So I thought my life was over at that point. But I think what it's taught me is find another way. That isn't the right way you need to go. Find the right way to go. It's a closed door doesn't mean you shouldn't be going to your end point. It's maybe that's not the route you need to go to get there.
Right. I love that. Find the right route. Doesn't mean give up on your dream. Just means, like they say that rejection is direction. If you still get rejected, it's giving you direction anyway. So it means don't go that way, go that way. Don't go with them, go with these other people, whatever. So I got it. That's great. What's a quote that you live by?
Ooh, I would have to say it's that, I'm like, so this is a quote I have. It's not like a famous person's quote. I would take it from what my cousin said in the hospital room, but it's, shouldn't you be having an impact on someone's life?
Yeah.
All of the tools I've been given.
Yeah.
Isn't that the end goal here, right? And I think that word impact really resonates with me, and it's kind of like a beacon for me on which way I should be going.
That's great. I always say that we're not here by ourselves. Therefore, we're not only here for ourselves.
Ooh, I like that.
That's what you're saying to me right now. It's about how can we have an impact on other people. That's great. What are the attributes that you think that you could share with our listeners and our viewers about what makes a winner? Is it being able to be agile? So you can't go that route, you go that route. What are some of the things that you think really helped you win as a leader?
I would say the top one is actually taking criticism, constructive.
Take feedback.
Having a teachable spirit.
Ah.
I don't know everything. None of us knows everything. And sometimes you just have to admit that you don't know, and then find someone who does. Don't pretend like you know if you don't. That's not going to help anybody. But it's having that teachable spirit so that you can become better. I think is super important to win. Otherwise, and sometimes you may know something, but it's having someone else's perspective that can point it out to you and say, you know what, actually, this is probably not the way you should do this, and to say, you know what, you're absolutely right. It can be all the difference.
Yeah, that's great, Carrie. I love that. So being teachable, it means you're open, because everything starts with your brain and your mind. And if your mind has, the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset, the growth mindset will win every time because they're teachable.
And one of the things that I would also add is, and I wouldn't say my parents comes from them, but I've heard them say it, is about your filter.
What is that?
So if you have a filter on that is very like defensive, anything that comes to you, you're gonna be like, yeah. But if you have a filter that is turned to, let me be teachable, let me be open-minded, then it's almost like your mindset. It is your mindset, but everything that comes is going to be filtered through that mindset, and so you have to make sure that you have that right filter on.
Right.
So now, I realize actually what I'm saying. It kind of does work like Instagram filters, but it's more so the filter of how it, like, when you filter through something, or you put food through a filter, or like a sieve. It's like you have to have that right filter, because it's gonna come on the other end the wrong way if you have the wrong filter. Yeah.
Right. I love it. I like that. Thank you for that. Okay. Wow. Let's. I want to thank Dr. Carrie. And it's funny, her name starts with Cari, which just happens to be the beginning of the word Caribbean, which happens to be the name of the company, Carrie Genetics. So this was made for you.
Thank you. Yes. I also have to break that up point as well. I didn't name the company after myself. It is just a coincidence.
It's great. Thank you. All right. So let's get ready. We are going to be taking a little break for the summer, and we're going to be back in September of 2026. And guys, I think it's the 24th of September. Yeah, it's written there. We're going to have two of the first Black mayors of two of these cities, Mayor Appleers, who is the mayor of Albany, and Mayor Sharon Owens, who is the first elected Black female mayor of Syracuse, New York. They're both going to be on the show on September 24th. And this is sort of just in time for the midterm election. So we're going to hear about what it means to be a woman in politics, what it means about being Black, etc. So come and watch us September 24th and join us. Thank you for watching. This is such a powerful conversation with a global disruptor who comes from a tiny island, is making mad waves all over the place. And we didn't just hear about success today. We witnessed what it looks like, to break barriers, to build where nothing existed, and to lead with a purpose that was much more personal than being just a winner. And so her goal, and Dr. Carika's goal, is going to be to leave the world better than when she found it, and to have an impact on other people. That's what real winners do, y'all. So as we leave this episode, ask yourself, where can you step up? Where are you going to be able to lead? Where can you create something that changes lives? Because the winner's circle that we are in isn't reserved seating. It's earned. And your seat is certainly waiting for you. And we will see you at the top. Until then, till next time, keep pushing, keep building, keep winning. Let's go. Thank you, Dr. Weldon. And I'll see you in Bermuda sometime.
Yes, you will.
Great. Bye, everyone.